This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Hot Takes, the show where I react to your hot takes of the week on my videos in the comment section and just have a general conversation about some of the videos that I release. All right, this first video was the rewatch from week 4. This was DTR's starting game debut, and it was rough for DTR, and in that game I kind of had a few revelations about him. One interesting comment comes from the user Dear Morgan, who says, my question to all of this is, if this were true, who are the scouts that looked at DTR and felt like he would work in this system? Didn't they bring DTR in for a visit before they drafted him? They should have known what he was capable of before drafting him. Seems like there's a disconnect between what Andrew Berry wants to put on this team versus what Kevin Stefanski wants. Maybe some. All right. Hey, man. This is doing way too much for a 5th round pick. Like, I think you're questioning the DTR pick as if it was like a 1st or 2nd round pick, which if this were a 1st or 2nd round pick, this level of scrutiny would be justified. But this level of scrutiny over a 5th round pick is just kind of silly, because a 5th round pick, there's an inherent understanding of, hey, this might not work out when we take him, but we're just going to see if it does. Because it's a flyer, right? We have some traits that we like about him. There's some things that don't look good about his ability to fit on the team. And we'll draft him. It's the 5th round. He's the highest guy on our board. Let's see if it works out. But, you know, it's not like he has to check every box. Like 5th round picks have to check a couple boxes, not every box. And you're looking at this from the angle of if DTR fit all the boxes, which if they drafted DTR in the 1st or 2nd round, this would be justified, but he was a 5th round pick. I think the 2nd 5th round pick that they had. This level of scrutiny is not necessary for a 5th round pick. You know, I think what they saw in DTR was a plus level athlete, somebody who throws the ball really hard and might have the potential, if his mechanics adjust, to have better arm strength than he showcased in college. They brought him in to see if that was the case and did not feel like that was going to change. And now I think they're going to make a move to kind of move forward from DTR, or maybe just try to further develop him. But yeah, I think asking a 5th round pick to check all the boxes is silly. Like, it's just inherently, and it goes into the problem I have with how people criticize draft picks, which is everybody gets criticized as if they're a 1st round pick or 2nd round pick, to the point where we don't even realize we're doing this with the 5th round pick. And you know, this is just another perfect example of people scrutinizing a 5th round pick with the lens of a 1st round pick. And it doesn't make sense once you actually think about it. We don't understand quarterback play, game changer versus game manager. Chad says Watson's skill set makes him a game changer. By definition, his arm strength, speed, escapability dictate how defenses play. Watson is on. Most people assume that the Browns went after Watson to get 5,000-yard seasons. They didn't. They went after Watson for options his presence creates in 3rd and 4th and short, critical 1st downs to salt the clock, go-to-goal situations regardless of who he's performing. There is always a threat of Deshaun Watson. I think the Browns went after Deshaun Watson because they wanted a quarterback who can consistently be a threat in the 4th quarter. And that's what the Browns are going to ask of Deshaun Watson. Look, a lot of people have a lot of opinions on what he needs to do statistically. I don't care what Deshaun Watson does statistically. And that goes both ways. If Deshaun Watson throws for 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, but those 12 interceptions are all in critical parts of the 4th quarter, and because of those 12 interceptions, the Browns win like 7 games, I'm not going to praise that season. He failed. Like, that's not what he's supposed to do. Vice versa, if he throws for 26 touchdowns and like 3,800 yards and like maybe 5 interceptions, but those touchdowns are at critical points of games and the Browns win 15 of them, I'm going to be praising that output of Deshaun Watson, not because of the numbers. People put too much emphasis on the numbers. The numbers are a side effect. You have to watch how those numbers are impacting the game. And that's what I care about when it comes to Deshaun Watson. Is he consistently a factor positively for this team in the fourth quarter? If he is, then that deal is going to be worth it for this team, because you're going to have a team that can contend legitimately for a Super Bowl. If he's not a factor in the fourth quarter, the Browns will be like the Buffalo Bills, like the Dallas Cowboys, and like a number of the Minnesota Vikings, a number of good teams with good records that are ultimately unserious. And the Browns didn't pay $230 million at quarterback to be unserious. They paid that money to be serious in the fourth quarter of these games, and that is what they want Deshaun Watson to be, a factor in the fourth quarter. They're not paying for 5,000 yards. They're not paying for 4,000 passing yards. They're not paying for 30 touchdowns, 40 touchdowns. They are paying to have somebody back there that can consistently be a positive factor in the fourth quarter. That's what they want to get out of Deshaun Watson. That's going to be what makes a difference if this team wins 10 games and they're a fun playoff team, to if they win 12 or 13 games and they're a serious threat to win it all. You know, I'm just so tired of having the semantic arguments about what Deshaun Watson's expectations should be, when this isn't about semantics or stats. And I'm not saying Ricky, who asked this question, is. He's very much not making this a semantic argument, but just the entire tone around the conversation with Deshaun Watson from a lot of people in the fan base who like him or who don't like him has been about these semantics and these arbitrary statistics that he might reach. And it just doesn't matter if he reaches those statistics. It matters if he's a factor in the fourth quarter. And the reason I say he was good in those 4 games, in the 4 to 5 games that he started, was in those 4 games the Browns won, he was a factor in the fourth quarter in each of them, a closer in the fourth quarter in each of them. Go watch the Cincinnati game, go watch the Tennessee game, go watch the Arizona game, go watch the Baltimore game. That's who you want. That's what makes a difference for this team. Can he close? Can he be a factor in the fourth quarter? Everything else is everything else. But that right there dictates how this goes for the Cleveland Browns, and dictates if this trade is going to be worth it and if this contract is going to be worth it. That's what it is. It's really not complicated to figure out how to judge this situation. The next video that we're going to take comments from is from the schedule drop video. Comment comes from Micra9905, who says the best part of the schedule is that week 2 through 5 stretch, mainly because we are overhauling the offense. So having a month of games for the teams not known for having oppressive defenses gives us time to get the offense rolling and clicking. And look, I think also what's important is that week 2 through 5 stretch, you're going to be playing games that you feel like defensively you can carry through and win. And the reason that's important is the offense might just be sloppy for the first 6 weeks of the season, right? You got a bunch of wide receivers coming in, trying to figure out a new system where it's a little bit different. Deshaun should be pretty fine. Like, these changes are to make it more familiar for him, not less. So he shouldn't be the one with the huge adjustment period, but maybe your receivers have a bit of an adjustment period. Maybe your offensive linemen who are going through a new system, new offensive line coach, have a bit of an adjustment period. And maybe your running backs have a bit of an adjustment period to a new system. So that offense might not be clicking 100% early on. So you want to be able to have some margin of error for that offense to struggle a little bit or just not be as smooth, and be able to still win games because of it. And I think that's why that week 2 through 5 stretch is, because by the time you get to week 6, you hope that all those kinks are ironed out. Week 10 bye versus week 4 bye. This is interesting because I think the week 4 bye actually worked out for the Cleveland Browns last year. Because if you don't have that week 4 bye, you don't switch from DTR to PJ Walker, and you probably don't beat the San Francisco 49ers. And if you don't beat the San Francisco 49ers, I do think that changes the tone of the entire season for this team. Like, them being able to beat the 49ers with PJ Walker really did change the confidence that this team had in themselves for the rest of the season. So I get what you're saying. A later buy is usually better than an earlier buy, but earlier buys aren't worthless. And we saw that last year because I think the week 4 buy worked out for this team. Not only did it give you one less week where you had to worry about if Deshaun Watson was going to play or not while he was dealing with the initial shoulder injury. So what could have been 4 games with the backup ended up being 3 games with the backup until he got hurt again. Yeah, but I think the week 4 bye actually worked out, to be honest with you, last year. I think it's an interesting, like, people jumping on the week 4 bye. I don't really think it's that bad. What is the Browns schedule telling us in 2024? Again, Micra says, I agree with the flip-flopping between Thursday and Monday Night Football. This feels like Amazon came to Goodell and let them know what they thought about all the stinkers they were getting in their exclusive matchups. Amazon has all new QBs, tons of rivalry games, storyline games like Sean Payton versus New Orleans. I don't think this has as much to do about like Amazon. Maybe Amazon threw more money in there. That's always a possibility. But Thursday Night Football has always been like the bottom of national TV games. But it seems like that has flipped spots with Monday Night Football this year. And I think the reason that's becoming the case is because the NFL looked at the numbers and the numbers are better on streaming than they are for cable. Like, I think that's a huge part of it. People seem to be able to have access to Amazon Prime. I mean, almost everybody has Amazon Prime. Like, it's just a kind of a part of what we do now. And it seems like that's a big winner for Amazon. And, you know, the NFL wouldn't put big games in places where people can't see them, right? You notice the games on Peacock, where less people have Peacock, aren't as significant as the games on Netflix and Amazon Prime, because a lot of us have had Amazon Prime and Netflix accounts for like the last 10 years. Like, it's just, yeah, I think if you surveyed up how many people had those accounts, it would be similar, if not more, than the amount of people who have cable. So I think this is less about Amazon begging for bigger gains, because if they weren't drawing a big audience on the streaming platforms, they wouldn't get the bigger games. This is more about streaming just being a platform that gets more eyes than cable, at least for football. And if it's the case for football, it's going to start to be the case for a lot of other things, because the one thing that cable had over streaming was you felt like if you went to a streaming exclusive model, you would lose overall volume of audience. But if that's not even the case for cable and traditional television anymore, and it's going to be the case for network, because literally everybody has network television. But if that's not the case for cable anymore, then these streaming platforms are going to be a lot more attractive, especially the ones like Amazon and Netflix that are, I mean, pretty ubiquitous within the United States. Like, everybody has Netflix, and it seems like everybody has Amazon Prime, so they can get 2-day shipping on Amazon. And then by proxy, you got Prime Video. So yeah, it's a changing of the guard. I think Amazon Prime and Netflix are seen as bigger cable channels than ESPN itself, which is shocking. Stat says, one thought I had is that the NFL is waiting on Nick Chubb to return. Our divisional nationally televised games start midway through the year. I think it's more the case that the NFL is kind of just waiting, seeing what the situation's going to be with the Browns. Like, are they going to be good? There's not a lot of faith that the Browns are going to have 2 good back-to-back seasons. They haven't done it in a while, so I would understand that. And I think they're not going to put the Browns on national TV a ton, like in weeks 8 to 10, just because they don't know if the team's going to be relevant at that point, which is fair. Spoiler warnings for the 2024-2025 Browns season. This is one where I was just kind of tongue in cheek, having some fun with it. It was interesting that a lot of people like took this video super seriously. And it was just like, you know, sometimes I want to just joke around with y'all, right? It ain't got to be all that serious. It's May. The season don't start till September. You know, let's have some fun with it, right? And that's I'm going to continue to want to have some fun with it, because as much as I love football and as seriously as I take the sport, you also got to have some fun with it, right? Like, or else you just kind of end up being miserable. The truth about Nick Chubb's knee. This is a video I did, and I don't really want to talk about any of the comments specifically. It was interesting what the reaction was in the comment section, or at least in some of the comments in the comment section. And I'm not trying to trash anybody or say that anybody is like wrong or bad because of some of these comments that were left. But it's just interesting to me that it seems like when it comes to Nick Chubb and when he will get back to the field, everybody has seemed to make up their mind, whether it's Nick Chubb's going to be back early or Nick Chubb's going to be back 8 weeks through the season or Nick Chubb's going to start the season on PUP list. Like, everybody has made up their mind on what's going to happen with Nick Chubb, despite the fact that, one, the information that we do have out there doesn't indicate that any of those more extreme situations are going to happen, like him missing half the season or him starting out on PUP. Like, what we know now publicly does not line up with somebody who's going to start the season on PUP or something crazy like that. Like, maybe PUP. PUP's not crazy, but like missing 8 weeks is a little crazy given the information that we have. And there's no real information to suggest that he's like guaranteed to start before this. And it's just interesting to me that everybody has made up their mind on what's going to happen for Nick Chubb and what's best for Nick Chubb. And why I worry about that is when people do that with injuries, they tend to hold that against teams. So like if Nick Chubb is ready for week 1, we're going to hear a lot of people talk like it's not responsible for the Browns to play him, or they're going to assume that the Browns are rushing him back, when it might just be the case that this is naturally where Nick Chubb is at his rehab. Like, I don't feel like my overall point with this whole Nick Chubb thing is I don't feel like enough people are actually paying attention to what's actually happening with Nick Chubb, and they're more focused on speculation about what's going on with Nick Chubb that's not based on what's actually happening with Nick Chubb. Like, even when somebody points out that a doctor said that this is going to be the case and it might be 11 months out for Nick Chubb until he plays again, it's speculation based on how other people have recovered from this injury, but it's not speculation based on how Nick Chubb himself has recovered from injuries like it. It's not speculation that's based on how Nick Chubb is progressing through his current injury right now. It's just basically speculating on like what could be the worst case scenario, when one, we know that the worst case scenario is a worst case scenario. It's not a most likely scenario. And two, just look at where he's at right now. It doesn't seem like this is a guy who's going to miss like 8 weeks of the season. I don't see that being the slam dunk that a lot of people are like pushing it out there to be. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Nick Chubb doesn't play until the bye week or something crazy like that. But I think a lot of people have made up their mind for one reason or the other on when Nick Chubb should come back. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of just messy discourse when it comes time for him to come back. Because if you already have it in your mind that Nick Chubb shouldn't come back till 8 weeks in the season, and then you find out that he's taking practice snaps in August, you're going to be acting like the Browns are being all kind of irresponsible about that. But it's like, what did you base that original timeline on? Like, again, it's just getting weird with the Nick Chubb injury. That's why I made the video. I think there's a lot of good, solid information. I compared Nick Chubb's current timeline to what his timeline was when he came back from a more devastating knee injury against when he was in Georgia in 2015. I compared that to, I had some actual videos in there about like ACL tears from doctors. I think I did a really good thing. So if you want to know more about what the timeline could be and some more informed Nick Chubb based speculation on when his injury recovery timeline could be, please watch that video. I put a lot of work into it, and I'm pretty proud of it. But y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.